I remember that day so clearly. The sun was warm, but the house felt cold, empty. It had been 6 months since my grandparents, Clara and Thomas, passed away. Their house, my childhood safe haven, now just a collection of memories and furniture. I had the difficult job of sorting through everything. "Just start with the attic, Clara," I told myself, taking a deep breath. The attic was full of things that smelled like time. Old wood, dry flowers, and dust. There were boxes everywhere, labeled with neat handwriting that was definitely my grandmother's. Christmas decorations, old letters, Thomas's tools. I opened a large wooden chest, one that always sat in the corner but was never opened. It was heavy, and the wood was dark, almost black. Inside, most of the things were just old blankets and clothes. I was about to close it when my hand touched something hard at the very bottom. I pulled it out. It was a small metal box, about the size of a book. It wasn't locked, so I lifted the lid. Inside, there was only one thing: a notebook. It was an old, leather-bound notebook. The leather was worn and soft, like a favorite old glove. I sat down right there, on the dusty floor, and opened it. The pages were yellow and fragile. The handwriting was Alara's, my beautiful, kind grandmother. But it was different, younger, more hurried. This wasn't her usual neat style. The first page said, "Alara's private thoughts, October 1955. I started reading. I couldn't stop. It was her diary from when she was just 18 years old. She wrote about her dreams, about moving to the city, and about her secret worries. She also wrote a lot about a young man named Thomas, the man who would become my grandfather. Most of the entries were sweet and simple. She wrote about their first dance, about him bringing her wild roses, and about long walks in the park. But then the tone changed. One entry, dated March 1956, was different. It was short and written in thick, dark ink. "Thomas and I made a promise today. We built something that will last forever, and we decided to keep it safe. It is our secret place. No one must know. We hid the blue key. The forgotten gate is now closed. Our future starts here." The blue key? The forgotten gate? I read the entry 3 times, but it didn't make any sense. My grandparents never had secrets, or at least that's what I thought. I knew the house and the garden perfectly. There was no forgotten gate. I put the old notebook down and stood up. The silence of the attic felt heavier now. I walked downstairs, holding the diary carefully. I went straight to the large, old garden that surrounded the house. It was a wonderful garden, but it had certainly seen better days. It was large and wild now, with old trees and bushes that had grown too tall. I started walking the whole perimeter of the garden, looking for anything that looked like a forgotten gate. The main gate was painted green and used every day. The back gate led to the forest. That was it. No third gate. I went back inside and opened the notebook again. I had to find another clue. A few pages later, I found a small, hand-drawn map. It wasn't a map of the whole garden, just a small corner of it, near the tall oak tree. On the map, there was a symbol that looked like a circle with a small cross inside, and next to it, the words, "Where the roots meet." I looked out the window at the tall oak tree. I knew exactly which one it was. It stood proudly at the far end of the property, its roots huge and thick, running along the ground like old snakes. I hurried outside. The oak tree was impressive. Its roots created small hills on the grass. I started carefully walking around the base of the tree, looking at the ground. Nothing. Then I remembered the map. Where the roots meet. There was one spot where two enormous roots crossed, forming a tight X shape. I knelt down and looked closer. Between the two roots, the soil looked a little disturbed, like someone had dug there a long time ago and then covered it up. I started to dig with my hands. The earth was soft at first, but then my fingers hit something hard. It was small and cold. I pulled it out. It was the key. It was an old, solid metal key, but the top was covered with a beautiful blue enamel. The blue key. My heart started beating fast. I was actually holding one of my grandmother's secrets from 70 years ago. Now I had the key. I needed the gate. I looked at the oak tree again. The map was drawn near the tree, so the gate had to be close. I stepped back, trying to see the whole area with new eyes. The back of the garden was lined with a very old stone wall. The wall was covered with thick ivy and climbing roses. It was so completely covered that it looked like a green, solid wall. I walked towards it, carefully pulling back the ivy. I pulled away a large, heavy section of ivy near the oak tree. And there it was. It wasn't a big, obvious gate. It was a very old, narrow iron gate, almost completely hidden by the leaves and the age of the wall. The metal was dark and rusted. It looked like it hadn't been opened for decades. It was exactly what my grandmother had called it, the Forgotten Gate. I looked at the blue key in my hand. It was beautiful. It felt right. I walked to the gate and found the lock. It was small and very stiff. I pushed the key into the lock. It fit perfectly. I took a deep breath. This was it, the moment of truth. I slowly turned the blue key. It was hard to turn, and the old metal parts groaned in protest. Click. The sound echoed, loud and clear, in the quiet garden. The lock was open. I pushed the gate with a slight tremble in my hand. The rusty iron made a long, high-pitched screech. I pushed the gate open completely. The sound was so loud it felt like I was waking the whole neighborhood. But inside, I knew no one could hear it. The ivy and roses that had covered the gate for so long fell away, and I took my first step inside. It wasn't a messy, neglected corner of the garden. It was a completely different world. The light was soft and green, filtered by the thick canopy of trees that grew higher than the ones in the main garden. Everything here was lush and wild, but in a planned way. It was a secret garden, frozen in time. There was a small, winding path, barely visible under years of fallen leaves. On either side, there were flowers I had never seen before, or perhaps they were just very old varieties. Roses climbed up ancient wooden structures, their colors faded but their scent still strong and sweet. It was so quiet here. The noise of the city, which was always present in the main garden, was completely gone. I felt like I had stepped 100 years into the past. I started walking slowly along the path. I could feel the years of history under my feet. It was clear that someone had planned this place with great care. Every tree, every bush felt deliberately placed. But who had taken care of it, or perhaps not taken care of it for so long? The key was hidden, the gate was locked. Had no one come here since my grandparents' wedding? As I walked deeper, the path opened into a small clearing. In the center of the clearing, under a huge weeping willow tree, stood an old stone bench. It wasn't the kind of bench you buy from a store. It looked like it was made from a single, smooth piece of river rock. I walked toward the bench. The surface was cool and covered with moss. But that wasn't what caught my attention. Next to the bench, set into a low stone wall, was a small, dark metal plaque.
I knelt down to read it. It was too small for a general message. It had to be the final clue. I had to brush away some dirt and moss to read the inscription. The words were simple, engraved in a beautiful old-fashioned script. Here we stood. Here we promised. 2 lives, 1 heart. Locked away for a new start. Clara and Thomas. July 24th, 1956. July 24th, 1956. I knew that date. It was their wedding day. My breath stopped in my chest. The story wasn't about a place they hid from the world because of a fight or a mistake. It was the opposite. It was about something so precious, so perfect, that they decided to lock it away to protect it. I sat on the cold stone bench, feeling a wave of emotion wash over me. I looked at the old notebook in my lap, then at the plaque, and then around the garden. I finally understood the entry in the diary. Thomas and I made a promise today. We built something that will last forever, and we decided to keep it safe. It is our secret place. No one must know. We hid the blue key. The forgotten gate is now closed. Our future starts here. This garden, this moment, this secret place. It was the moment they truly became them. Before the children, before the house payments, before the decades of everyday life. They sealed this perfect beginning, making a promise that their love would always be as fresh and secret as this hidden garden. It suddenly felt like they weren't gone. It felt like they were sitting right next to me. I could almost hear my grandmother's quiet laughter and my grandfather's gentle voice. They had left this whole, untouched memory for me to find. I spent the next hour just sitting there, absorbing the peace. I realized that the house sorting, which had felt like such a sad task, was actually a final adventure they had planned for me. They had led me to the attic, to the chest, to the notebook, to the map, and finally to the key. It was a perfect farewell gift. I looked at the weeping willow. Its branches hung low like curtains, giving the place a feeling of deep privacy. I walked over to it and gently touched the bark. I thought about what I should do next. Should I tell my family? Should I open the gate permanently? No, that would break the promise. The garden was meant to be forgotten by the world and remembered only by the one who held the blue key. Now that person was me, Clara. I stood up, feeling a new sense of purpose. I took the small notebook and the blue key, which felt warm in my palm now. I walked back to the rusted gate. I looked back at the green clearing, at the stone bench under the willow tree, and at the beautiful old roses. I promise, I whispered to the empty, quiet air. Your secret is safe with me. I carefully pulled the gate shut. It made the same long, protesting screech sound. I locked the gate with the blue key and listened for the satisfying click. The secret was sealed once more. Then I started pulling the ivy and the climbing roses back over the gate. I worked slowly, making sure every piece of iron was covered, making the stone wall look solid and green again. When I finished, I stepped back. The gate was completely gone, just a dense green wall. The forgotten gate was forgotten once more. I walked back toward the house, the blue key now tucked safely inside the old notebook, which was tucked safely inside my pocket. The sun was setting, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink. The main garden still smelled of dust and old wood, but I didn't feel cold anymore. I felt warm. I had found the true heart of my grandparents' life, and by finding their secret, I had also found a part of myself that had been lost. I walked into the kitchen and put the kettle on. I knew exactly where I belonged now. I had the blue key, and I had a hidden garden waiting for me. And every time I needed to feel their presence, All I had to do was open the right page, hold the blue key, and know that behind the ivy, something perfect was waiting. My adventure was just beginning.